Juan Jose Campanella, thank you so much for being with us in the
Oh,
America's
thank
Film
you. Thank
Festival,
you.
New York. It's an honor to have El Cuento de las Comadrejas as our opening night film.
It's an honor for me. It's an honor for me.
Thank you so much. When I saw your movie, I saw it in Havana, and it was like 2,000 people watching the
Yes.
movie and laughing so hard and applauding in the right places at the right time. I thought that, and it was my feeling all the time, that I thought this is a movie that only, or maybe a director with a director by trade is, it will be able to do it, or at least he will dare to do that film, because it's a movie that gives too many wings to the cinephiles without being overwhelming in showing off how much he knows about cinema.
Yes, yes, yes.
But yet I didn't know if that was the case for you. How long had you been working on this project? If it was just,
Oh,
5 years or 2 years?
no, no, no. I have been working on this project. The first draft of the script is from 1997. So I have been working, and I shot it in 2018. So it was yes, it was 21 years, 21 years in the making. It was really, it changed a lot. One of the biggest changes in those years was that it changed the generation of my characters. So, characters that were big in film in the 50s now were from the 60s and 70s, which was great, I have to say, for the dynamic of the characters, because they were from a much from a cooler age, let's say, and so I could play with their music and with their personalities much more. Yes, but the idea of the wings at cinephilia that the movie has is that you're not supposed to know things about specific movies. There might be a reference or two to Argentine directors, but that is so so irrelevant to the plot and the story, that it doesn't matter if you miss them. But what it does play with is with the conventions of films and of movies, and with the structure. It's almost since the characters are filmmakers, they're explaining to us the structure of the film as we're watching it.
Right.
So it does have has that game. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a movie in a movie, and really sometimes you feel like you are. At some parts, it's kind of it takes you inside of the story in such a powerful way that you think that is real. Their
Yeah.
story, their love story, and I love remakes, and sometimes I like to see both, or the many remakes that I have in a story. And I was able to watch the movie. I must say that I saw first yours, and then I went to look for the Los Muchachos de Antes
No usaban
no
arsénico.
usaban arsénico. But even though it's kind of the same idea, then yet it's completely different, because this is a love story. Yours is a love story.
Exactly.
Oh, I think so.
Yes, of course. And that was the the starting point for the remake. It was always to me an environment that I loved. I thought the original movie was very very witty, very dark in its humor. It was a straight homage to the the British movies, the dark humor British movies of the 50s, and I thought, what would happen, because I love the character of Mara very much, so I wanted for her to have another fate. so
Yeah.
so I said, what would happen if those movies would meet Ernst Lubitsch in a way, would have like a great romantic comedy too, in the middle of all this dark humor story. And that was the original motivation to do a remake. I always say that a remake is great if you can watch both films in a double bill without one ruining the other, so that they would have a reason to be made. And that was it. And I talked to the original director, who was my teacher and dear teacher, and mentor, Jose Martinez Suarez, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, "Go ahead, fine, that will be fun," and that started it. But it took, as I
And
said, 27 years to make.
also in the sense of the characters, you work with the biggest stars in Argentina.
Yes.
Is was that something that kind of challenging for you as a director, even though you are working with people that know what they are doing?
Yes.
How challenging is for you sometimes, even though you have experience?
More than challenging, it was an honor. It was a real trip. It helped me a lot in this occasion that the four of them knew each other from decades. So they were good friends. I mean, the four of them are very good friends. They know each other's history, they know each other's plays and works and love affairs and everything. They're all in this together since, well, in the case of Graciela, since the late 50s, and Beto started in the early 60s, and then Oscar is the youngest of the bunch. He started more in the 70s, but they've been together and know each other for 40 years. So it was like a reunion. There was a climate of a high school reunion during the making of the film, and it was very funny. It was really, I mean, we had a lot of fun doing it. It wasn't very nerve-wracking for me, though. I was telling the kids who started, you always have apprentices in every shoot, that for them
Yeah.
is a first movie. And I was telling them, guys, you should be honored to be one of the 50 people who can see this live. The rest of the world is going to watch it on a screen, and you are seeing this live. You'll never get these four people together again. Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
that was the other thing. How did you balance to work with these so experienced actors with the others like Nicolas, Francella, and that? How was
No,
for
they were
you
they
to?
were they were great. They were great. They were the older actors, with more experience, were they're very much in touch with the young side of themselves. So they saw in Nico and Clara Lago, who they're both actors with experience already. It wasn't their first
Yes,
film
yes,
for
yes.
it for either of them. So, but they saw in them, people that they related to. The Nico and Clara were also very, respectful of the other two. It really wasn't at all a nerve-wracking situation. I think that we were more nervous when we were about to make the film. It's almost like the stage fright. You have it more before the curtain rises, and once you're on the stage, it disappears. So that was a little bit of this here. I was also thinking, in pre-production, oh, how is it going to be with having the four of them together? Maybe they're four big egos. I had worked with Graciela and with Beto many times before, but and no, not at all. It was not at all like that. They were all great, good friends. Each of them with their own uh, preoccupation. Graciela was all in the film. Beto, he's an actor that I love and adore, not only as an actor but also as a person. He's a very political man. He was a representative in Argentina. He's very much in tune with everything. So he was all the time listening to the news, you know, more and immediately I would say, okay, let's get ready, and he immediately gets in character, and it's incredible, the transformation. So everybody had their own little preoccupation, and but it was great. It was great. I
And
really have no anecdotes, or I didn't have to deal with any problems that were not related to the actual making of the movie.
and talking about them, Graciela Borges, which is the big, I mean, she's the actress in Argentina,
Yeah, yeah.
and
We couldn't have made
um,
a film without her. I mean, there was no other person who could have done it. Yeah.
exactly. And I've seen her more in like dramatic
Yes.
roles, so it was amazing. How did you work with her? And
Incredible. I'm telling you, she has such I mean, you will see it in the movie. She has such a subtle comedic timing. Um, so good and so understated, but yet you have, comedy is very thin. You have to,
Yes.
it's not a broad comedy, and it's very thin, and she's very subtle in it, that I was also surprised. And I asked her how come she didn't make more comedies. And the truth is that there haven't been, in Argentina, there haven't been that kind of comedy,
Mm.
that much. We are more into the, generally as a country, more into the, Italian, well, no, in some of the bigger Italian farcical tradition, and
Mm-hmm.
that was bigger. And they just didn't call her for that. So it was amazing. I worked with her in a TV show in 2011, and I called her for a part that it was a guest star, but she was a lead of that episode. And I was wondering how she was going to do with comedy, and I was astounded, to see that she had flawless comedic timing. And then that's why I offered her to make this movie, and
It was
that's
amazing.
happened.
No,
The movie also took 27 years to make, because there were many years where we wouldn't have the right cast for it. There wasn't the right actor. Like 20 years ago, Graciela was too young to play the
yes,
part.
yeah.
We didn't have that person. So it was a lucky coincidence.
Good. And this is your first movie in Argentina, I think after El Secreto de tus ojos, right? The
The
first,
first,
and
the first
after that, well,
live action movie. I made
yeah,
an
the live
animated movie.
action. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
you
made an
come.
animated movie in between. Yes.
Yes, I saw that. So, was it something that it took you, because you are a very busy person? But how
Mhm.
was for you to go back to into that, into working in Latin America in live action, and working in a
It was
project like
no,
this?
it was great. Actually, I was a little bit. Yeah, it had been 10 years since we shot the Secret in the Rise, and
Mm.
I had worked a lot on television. I have worked. I made, as I said, an animated movie that took me 4 years. That was right after we started, right after El Secreto de sus Ojos, and we finished in 2014. So I was a little bit, yes, that was the most, that was the nervous part of it. Would this be a movie? Would this be a good movie? Would this be the right movie? But then, when I started working, all those preoccupations disappeared, and I really started enjoying the process very much. And right now, what I guess maybe all filmmakers are going through is this change, this moment of change. What's going to happen with films? Every year it changes more and more. um, is the films for the big are films for the big screen disappearing?
Mm.
What will happen? What will happen as a financial, financing of films is changing completely? What will happen with films? And well, that's what we're going through.
Three of friends of mine that knew that I was gonna talk to you, they are filmmakers. They asked me to ask these three questions, and the first
Okay.
one is that the first one is, what was the that piece of e- either an advice that you got, or something that you learned early on the trade, that is stuck with you, that it's been with you, it's been like something that you learn and you never forget?
It was the first time that I heard the phrase that one had to have a rhinoceros skin in this. Um, and I really, it's the only advice that I can give younger people, because I cannot give any advice regarding filmmaking, except prepare, don't come to the set unprepared. But other than that, I cannot say it, because everything relates to everybody's own sensibility, so I cannot tell them how to make movies, because I only know how to make my kind of movies, not every movie. But having a rhinoceros skin is very, very important. Having a belief in yourself, but it's a thin line, because you have to have a strong belief in your potential, but at the same time be open enough to the good criticism so you can get better. It's very important, because most of the people and most of the environment will work against you. You know, it's very hard to make it through. You know, it's very hard to to get to the point where you can make your own decisions. And for that, you have to have a big belief in yourself. You know, usually the older people are uh, reluctant. You know, this is it's an industry like in many other industries. It's an industry where the old refuse to go away, and they don't leave room for the young. You know, this is not a retirement age profession. You know, there is no retirement age here, so we retire when we die. So so there's a lot of resistance, and that resistance is many times in the sense of closing the doors to people. And to close those doors, they have to find an excuse, and the excuse is that you're not good enough. You know, you're going to get a lot of bad criticism, and it really has to be. You have to have a very thick skin and a big belief in yourself. And I'm saying again, at the same time, open enough to accept the part of the criticism, recognize the good criticism from the bad criticism, recognize the criticism that wants to make you better from the criticisms that just wants to get you out of the game.
Very good. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
indeed. And the other is about acting and how you work with actors, and when you are working with, young, just starting actors, and then the other ones that are, seasoned or very experienced. How do you work in the set to make everybody comfortable and, like, pretty much get your message of how
Yeah.
you want it?
You know, there's something to the film director that is a little different from the stage director. You know, the film director makes 2 minutes, 3 minutes a day, so they can work fine tuning the scene on the day of the shoot. So the rehearsals that I do are usually, like take place from 2 weeks before, and I try not to rehearse it completely as if it was a stage play, which I also direct, and it's a completely different process.
Mm-hmm.
What I try here, these are more reading rehearsals, reading rehearsals that we sit just with the people who are in those scenes. I don't like the read-throughs with the entire cast in it, so just let's say in the case of Weasels Tale, we would rehearse. We would have 2 afternoons between Graciela and Beto, and rehearse their scenes as a couple.
Yeah.
Then we would have another set of rehearsals with the 3 guys, the 3 friends. Then one afternoon with Graciela and Nicolas and the younger guy, and like that. And in those days, we go over the scene. We recognize what the scene is about. What's the most important emotion. All the usual things that you do in rehearsals. Since this is a comedy too, we go over the very humorous moments. How to play those. We read it. We read the scene. We don't put it on its feet. We don't put it on its feet. We just read this. We read the scene,
Mm.
and sometimes try to recognize if the humor gets in the. In my kind of comedy, the emotions are very important, and sometimes the humor, instead of being the salt on the meat,
Mm.
can overpower the taste of the meat. So we recognize if we're going too far there, because there's also a very thin line of a humorous line that sort of enhances an emotional moment, or a humorous line that breaks the emotion of the moment. So that's very instinctive. That's unfortunately not something that is teachable. And we try to recognize those things. Basically, so when we get to the set, all we have to talk about is how we block it and how we stage it. But we're on agreement on the scene. There are no discussions on set about the lines. Should I say this instead of that? All that we talk about before. And that helps a lot. And that's how we can get a movie like this made in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, it was in 6 weeks?
Yes.
My.
Yes.
Wow. Incredible. And the other question was about, in the first is if you lost that or if you still have that passion or those nervous and
Yes.
jitters, and the other one is if the filmmakers that are coming from Latin America to work in US,
Yes.
Do you think that there is that's something that it's going stronger, or it's
Okay.
hard for them?
Also,
Or
it was two questions. That's what
it's two, that's what I
I
was
was
saying.
trying
It
to
was two questions
relate it.
for the
Okay, okay.
one person.
Okay. So okay, so the first one, yes, it's like also because I work on other media, in television and theater too. When I make a movie, a feature film, it's something that I really think that it will be an important, a story that will stand the test of time, that can be seen from 20 years from now. Television to me is something more immediate. I'm not as worried if I make a mistake on one episode, then there's always the next week's episode, to solve it. And film is final. And on theater, you have basically the opening night is your first draft of the play, because you
It's a
rehearse it
canvas.
for 2 months, but you rehearse it without an audience. So you don't know where the laughs are. I have done comedies only on stage. So you don't know where the laughs are, so basically on opening night, you start re-rehearsing, readjusting the play. In film, no, it's not like that. In film, every decision is final. You see it without an audience. You don't have next week's episode to fix it. And people will watch it over and over again, and hopefully for 20 years. So in one way, yes, I'm still very nervous about every choice that I take. But on another way, I have tend to rely more on the crew, on the team. It's very, very important. This might be another advice. Choose the best. Choose people who are the best. Don't worry. Some people are worried about choosing great people because they're afraid of the competition on set. Choose the best. It's always going to be credited to the director. And it's important, because when you work with the best, and provided that they also see the film in the same way that you do, no, the best, and that they have to be in agreement towards what film you want to do, then I tended to rely more on the crew. Like in my first movie, I had storyboarded the entire movie, and now I make short lists, or I prepare the first 2 weeks, because I like to see what happens. I like to see what happens on the shoot. The style manifests itself in the first 2 weeks better. So I tend to be doing 1 week at a time. I never go to the set and prepare for that day, but I don't design the entire film before, like I did in my first movie, because I know that the input of the actors and seeing it on its feet will make an impact on how I will shoot it. So that's the only changes. And regarding the Latin American talent here in the United States, I'm here right now. It's Yes, there has been many more talent coming from Latin America, but the most important thing, I think, is that there has been more Latin American movies being important, not just having the talent coming to work here, but making movies in Latin America that are more important. And I think that that's a great thing, that are seeing, like festivals like this one, which is great. And they showcase our films, that people are more aware, more interested in watching them. And I think that that's the greatest thing that has happened in South American filmmaking. I think that is
Okay.
that is a great thing. Now, of course, the entire world is suffering through this change of paradigms that I was telling
Yes.
you. The fact that we're having a film festival online,
Online.
that is something very different. So let's see what happens in the next few years. What will come back to being the way it was before the pandemic, and what is here to stay.
Okay. The
Yeah.
last question, it's this. What is for you, el cuento de las comadrejas, for you, for me, it was also a tale of friendship.
Yes, of
Like
course.
it's a
Yes, yes,
beautiful,
yes.
but I would like to know what it means for you, that film, that it seems for, sometimes I thought I've seen all your films and I am a fan of yours,
Thank you
but,
very much.
and I thought this was a kind of very personal film,
Yes.
in a way, well, the others too, but I felt this so like you. So I
Yeah,
would like
yeah.
you to tell me a little
Well,
bit about.
yes, it's true that it has a. There are many things that are very personal in it, and that the film over these 21 years of rewriting have been also changing. Because in 1997 I was in, where was I? Where was I? In my 40s, I guess. Was in my 40s? Yes. No, in my 30s. I was in my 30s, and now I'm not in my 30s. So things change. But I think that yes, it's a film that came from from being a joke on the characters of our industry to being an homage to the characters of our industry, to laughing at their foibles. I am still laughing at them, but I'm laughing with them, which is, I'm not laughing at them now. I'm laughing at us, and that makes a difference. And also, the most important thing, because my country has been going through a lot of political turmoil in the last 15 years. There has been a division. There has been a political division, and some of us, we find friends that we don't talk to anymore. We have enemies that we now talk to, and 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 to me it was more a desire and a wish and a statement that there's something bigger than that, that should keep us together, that should keep our friendship together. And these four characters are very, very different among themselves, that still in the end they find out that they respect and love each other,
Yeah.
and that they want to be together. It's the most personal statement in the movie.
Okay. Thank you so much, Juan. Thank you for making the time to be with us. Really,
No,
I
please, my
appreciate it. It's an
pleasure, my
honor.
pleasure. And thank you for watching.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you very much.